Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Thank you so much for coming to our second class of this course on the Diamond Cutter Sutra. So let's first, before we get started, let's take a moment to recall our motivation for taking this course, for being here today. Try to make it as big and as far-reaching and as heartfelt as you can. The more clear we can make our motivation, the more clearly we feel it in our hearts. Not only does that inspire us throughout this class, but it helps us to create the most powerful karmic seeds that we can. So, with that motivation in mind, if you're so inclined to join me in the prayers, it's not required, but if you would like to. Sashi Buki Jukshin Metok Tram Rira Blingshin Yinde Gampati Satange Shindu Mikte Uwarki Drokun Namdak Shingla Chuparso Itam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Sangye Chiran Soki Chuknam La Changchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Chushe Gipe Sunam Ki Chola Penshir Sangye Duparsho Sangye Chiran Soki Chuknam La Changchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Chushe Kipe Sunam Ki Drola Penshir Sangye Juparso Sangye Chiran Soki Chuknam La Changchu Partu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Chishe Gipe Sunam Ki Jola Penshir Sangye Druparsho. So does anyone have any questions from the last class that we had a couple of days ago? So who can tell me then, what was the question that Subhuti asked of Shakyamuni Buddha? Remember this sutra, the Diamond Cutter Sutra, uh, the subject of our course is basically a conversation between Subhuti and Shakyamuni Buddha. And Subhuti starts things off by kneeling down in front of Shakyamuni Buddha and asking a question. Right. Thank you so much, Tom. How should a bodhisattva practice? How should a bodhisattva live? How should a bodhisattva think? Thank you so much. Good. So now we're going to start in with Buddha's answer. So let me share the Tibetan for this class. So the Tibetan document that you'll get for this class will be one example of, like, I go through the class that Geshe Michael taught, and I do my best to find all of the Tibetan words that he shared when he taught the class. And so this one is, careful now, I'm going to spin the pages, but this one is very long. And don't worry, I'm not going to be able to cover it all. It's a whole lot. But I want you to be able to have it so that when you continue your studies on the Tibetan language, I know that several of you are studying this language, you'll have this as a resource for how Geshe Michael used the language. There's something I have found about being familiar with the Tibetan language that brings deeper meaning to the teachings. So you can explore that more deeply on your own time. I think with these courses, it's good. I found it beneficial to go through them many times, not just once, not just twice, but many times. Oh, here's a good question. Well, all questions are good, but this one in particular. Why is it that they say we see emptiness directly only once? Well, it's not true that we see emptiness directly only once. We see emptiness directly for the first time only once. So let's say that we're a person who's been introduced to these teachings and we study them well, we serve other people, and we go into a deep meditation on emptiness and we see emptiness directly. So that will have been the first time that we see emptiness directly in all of our lives from beginningless time. We will never again in a future life see emptiness directly for the first time. But it is possible to see emptiness directly. In fact, the higher a bodhisattva, it advances on what they call the levels of bodhisattva training and practice. They say, and it's not related to this course, it's from other teachings I've received, that a bodhisattva is becoming familiar with not only what they saw when they did see emptiness directly, but seeing emptiness directly again. And the shall we say, the border between seeing things, ordinary things, objects in our world, our thoughts, our emotions, our computer monitor, other people in our lives. The border between seeing those things and seeing emptiness directly becomes, I don't know what you would say, becomes more and more narrow, that border. The first time you see emptiness directly, the border is humongous. The more you become familiar with it, the more you see it again, that border becomes more and more narrow. Only a fully enlightened being has no border between seeing what they call arisings, the arisings of their projections. And I may have just gone way too deep. We're going to just start on talking about what we call dependent arisings. But as for why it is that this, of like all experiences that we could ever have, is it true? I'm just trying to think, is that true? The only kind of experience that we see first, only once. Well, I suppose you could say that when we become fully enlightened, that first moment, of full enlightenment, that first moment happens only once. I don't know. And, but I do know that, if we think about, there's a clue in the idea that when we see the absence of a self nature, to me, to Utpala, to Inna, in deep meditation, for the first time, we become an entirely different kind of living being. We become a realized being. Things fundamentally, or I should say fundamental things about ourselves, completely change. We are no longer mistaken. We have seen that object directly, which is the key to removing all of our suffering, the key to stopping creating more and more negative karma, which keeps us in the realm of suffering. So within that idea that it's we become fundamentally different kind of person. I think there's a key there to your question. Okay. So the Buddha is going to start to answer. Shariputra, about how a bodhisattva should live and practice and think. And the first thing he says is that bodhisattvas should work for Semchen. Can anyone tell me what a Semchen is? Literally, Semchen, it's a person who has a mind. Yeah, sentient beings, living being. Thank you so much. So, anyone who has a mind, and it refers to not really everyone who has a mind, because it doesn't include Buddhas. Buddhas have minds, but Buddhists are not, when we talk about Samchen, when we talk about living beings, we're talking about ordinary living beings, and ordinary in the sense of being in the realm of suffering. And what we're going to find in this text, in this sutra, the way that the Buddha responds to Subhuti's question, is that he's going to be, in a way, playing tricks on us. And so when the Buddha says that Bodhisattva should be serving all living beings, he doesn't really mean all beings who are alive or all beings who have a mind. What he really means are all beings who are in the realm of suffering. So that's like the first little trick that he plays. So he doesn't really say all living beings right out. He starts talking about types of living beings. So we're going to talk as briefly as I can about different types of living beings that the Buddha told Subhuti about. So the first type of living being, or I should say categorization of living being, is to talk about living beings in terms of the way that they were born, how they came into being. And Keneshi, there are four. K means to be born. Kene literally means a place to be born, and she means four. So there are four ways of being born. We can find these descriptions made in the Abhidharmakosha, and also in the Lamrim texts, the long ones anyway, they talk about this as well. So the first one is called Gong Kye. Say Gong Kye. Gong is a shortcut for O Nga, Ko Nga. And that means egg. And Kye again means to be born. So anyone who was born from an egg, so like birds, I think it's lizards who also lay eggs. Those little salamanders who walk around on the ground. We have a lot of them in the desert. So alligators are born from eggs. Different creatures are born from eggs. So all those kinds of people the Buddha is talking about. The second type of being or not type of being, but the second way that beings come into being is called Nelke. This one's a little hard to say. Nelke. Nel means womb. And this is the way, of course, that human beings are born. And many primates are born this way, through a mother's womb. Okay, so those are ones we're quite familiar with, those two types of being born. Now we're going into other types of being born that we may not be as familiar with. Drusher le kepa. C'est Drusher le kepa. Drusher le kepa. Dru means warmth, heat. Sher means moisture. Le kepa, this lei, we have many different leis, and we also have many different meanings to the lei that is spelled the same way. This lei means from. So born from. Oh, very good. Thank you, Milan. You've been studying well. Born from warmth and moisture. Actually, this idea still exists around today. Like I live in the middle of a desert, and we get monsoon rains. So periods of time when the rains are extremely prolific, and we all of a sudden get a whole bunch of moisture when it's been basically dry and sunny for months and months. And then when these rains come, as an example, there are these tiny little red six-legged insects. They're furry and they're brilliant, bright red. And then all of a sudden, there they are one day after the first day of monsoon. You didn't see them before. It doesn't look like they're particularly like attracted to water, for example. It's not like they're a fish or something like that. They're a tiny little insect, but boom, the rains come and there they are. So that they appear to be born from warmth and moisture. Science would probably tell us otherwise, though. And then the fourth type of birth is called Jute Kepa. C'est Jute Kepa. Jute means miraculously, but born from a miracle. And what this is referring to is being born complete. So all of the births we see, unless you are someone who sees someone who's been born miraculously, is we see beings born as little infants, and usually they're helpless. At least human beings are really quite helpless when they're first born. Some animals, like horses, they're already walking on day one. They're not born complete. They still have some growing to do. They have some learning to do before they can be on their own. But they're born at a much more advanced level than, say, human beings are. All we know how to do when we're born is cry. and suck on a teat. We pick that up really quickly. But this is referring to being born absolutely complete as an adult. And one of the examples that are in the scriptures is being born as a hell realm being. So in the hell realms, you're not born as an infant and to a mother and father who raise you to being a good little hell kid. You're born complete as an adult, and you start suffering the instant you're born as an adult. And actually they die and are born countless times over and over and over again, but they appear fully mature. They do say this too about some great teachers are born that way, born as a complete adult. Padmasambhava, for example. So those are the 4 ways of taking birth. So what do you suppose that what was the Buddha's thinking? Like, why did he say, oh, save beings that are born in these 4 ways? What point do you think he was trying to get across? These 4 ways of being born are ways that people in the different realms of samsara, the different realms of existence in samsara, are born. So we're talking hell beings and animals and hungry ghosts and human beings and those beings, devas and jealous devas. All those kinds of beings are born in one of these ways. So when Buddha says, save all the beings that are born in these ways, he's making clear that he's talking about beings who are born in the circle of suffering, in the realm of samsara, in those 6 realms. He's also saying that, there are more kinds of beings around than you know through your own experience. Like Subhuti, you know about animals and how they're born, the different ways they're born, and you know how humans are born, but there are these other ways of being born. There are other kinds of beings. You have to help them too. And we don't know this. We can't prove that these other types of beings exist. We have to, to know for sure, we have to see it or experience them directly. So for now, we are, if we do take the Buddha as someone who speaks the truth, then we take on a certain level of faith that these types of beings exist and that these types of beings are born in these different ways. So that was one way of talking about living beings. So now we go on to another way of talking about living beings. Say Sukchen. Sukchen. This is low tone because of the sa. Sukchen. Then we have Sukchen Min. So Suk, does anyone know Suk? We find that word in the Heart Sutra if we are reciting it in the Tibetan language. It's another hint is that it's the first of the 5 heaps. Body, right? Body or form, our physical body. So Chen means to have or possess. So we're talking about beings who have a body. And then Min, the word Min is one of those negative words. Like in English, we say un, a prefix un. Ma, mi, min, me. Those are the 4 types of negative prefixes. So sukmepa or sukchen min means the same thing. What do you suppose that means? No form, right? Those beings who are living beings, they have a mind, Sem Chen, they have a mind, but they don't have a form. And here they're not talking about actually there's no body whatsoever. What this refers to is a gross physical body, a gross bag of skin and bones and stuff. There is a very subtle body, inner body, as there is a very subtle mind. So they just don't have a gross physical body. So here, when we talk about these kinds of people, or we talk about people in the realm of suffering in this way, we're talking about the 3 realms. So before we were talking about with how they were born, we were talking about the 6 realms of samsara. Now we're talking about the 3 realms of samsara. We've got the desire realm. This is the realm that we're in. We're mainly attracted to objects of our senses, primarily food and sex. Then we have the form realm, which is a realm where the beings still have a body, but they spend their time in meditation. And it's a whole different realm, and we'll get into that. And then there's the formless realm. And these beings don't have a gross physical body at all. So that subtle body that I mentioned, it's so subtle. It's like light. It's as physical as light. It's not, you can't really say it's physical, but they call it physical. But it's definitely not gross physical. You can't touch it. So in the first 2 realms, the desire realm and the form realm, those are beings who have bodies. And then in the formless realm, those are beings who don't have bodies. You get into, let me just talk briefly about the form realm. In order to see emptiness directly, even though our physical body will be in the desire realm, our mind needs to reach a particular level of the form realm. And when we're in that state of deep meditation, it is a very advanced state of meditation. We are in the causal form realm. Our mind is in the causal form realm. If we're not really specific with our motivation, doing that kind of meditation over and over and over again will be a cause for being born in the form realm. We don't want to be there. It's not the best realm. We're in the best realm. Desire realm is the best realm. We have the ability from this realm to get enlightened, totally enlightened. In the form realm or formless realm, if we're born there, if it's the resultant form realm or resultant formless realm, we're pretty much just meditating. We're not really advancing on a spiritual path. With this one exception, and that is at this level, it's called Samten Dangpoi Nyerdok Michokne. It's actually the preliminary level to the first of the 4 formless realm levels of meditation. We get there, our minds do. Our bodies are still here in the desire realm. When we see emptiness directly, our minds are at that level, and that experience lasts only a very short period of time. 5 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. And then our minds, like, I don't know, it's hard to talk about these things. Like they say, fall back down. It's not really like falling. It's not like the form realm is like over our heads or something like that. But it's a finer, more subtle state of mind. So when the mind becomes more gross again, after that meditation, it feels like it's fallen down because it feels more gross. And that's something that we just have to experience. There are many higher levels of meditation. There are higher states of meditation that people can reach. And there are people who spend time and effort to reach those higher and higher and higher levels of mind, more and more and more subtle levels of mind. And that's not the goal. For those of you who took the course on meditation, you know that the goal is not to most subtle and most focused, to have the most subtle and focused mind as we possibly can. That's not the goal. The goal of meditation is to use it as a tool to reach this level, to reach this preliminary stage to the first level of the form realm, so that we can experience emptiness directly. That's it. That's why we use meditation. One example. And the other is to become familiar in a deep way, in a way we become familiar with the Buddhist teachings so that the teachings live in our hearts. We become that familiar with them so that we are able to more easily practice the teachings when we're in our everyday lives, our walking around the street lives. Okay, I've spent far too much time on that. Sorry. Okay, so 3 realms. This way of talking about beings as having a body or not covers all 3 realms. Now, next, he divides living beings by conceptions. And this is called, we've got 3 types here. We've got Geshe Chen. Say Geshe Chen. Then we've got Geshe Mipa. That's another one of those negative words. So people who are not Geshe. And then we've got the third one is, it's really not confusing, even though it looks confusing. Trust me, we'll get there. Geshe Mei, Geshe Mei Min. We've got a whole bunch of negatives going on around this word Geshe. So what does Geshe mean? It actually has two. So remember we talked earlier about Suk, which is body or form, right? And it was the first of the skandhas. Geshe is another one of the skandhas. Skandha is the Sanskrit word for the 5 heaps, the 5 parts to a living being. They are form, feeling, discrimination, other mental factors, and consciousness. So we've got body and mind, and then these mental factors. So here we're talking about the third of the 5 heaps is the heap of discrimination. The ability to make distinctions. This particular mental function, discrimination, is what they call omnipresent. It always is in any living, even Buddhists, this ability to discriminate. It's one of the 5 that every single living being has. When we talk about it in a way that that gets us into trouble, like in the 12 links of dependent origination in the Wheel of Life, making discriminations like this is good, this is bad. I like this, I hate that. Get me more of that. Keep me away from that. When we discriminate like that in a way that's ignorant, and we'll get into it. Sorry, there's just so much. That kind of discrimination can get us into trouble, because it's enveloped in ignorance. It's based on this idea that things are coming at me, and the things that I like that are coming at me, I want more of them. And the things that I don't like that are coming at me, I want them to stop coming at me. It's totally ignorant about the way things are that we create, whether things are attractive or disgusting. That comes from ripening of our seeds, but we'll get there. But making a distinction like, oh, there's On, and there's Sharon, and there's Koi, and there's Milan. I'm making distinctions. There's Ina. I'm making distinctions between the people in these little boxes on my monitor. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just making, a distinction. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what we do. We are beings who we create objects out of the things that we take in with our senses, out of colors and shapes, in this case, because I can't hear you and I can't touch you. I can only see a teeny little square of your face on my monitor. So out of these colors and shapes, I'm throwing the label Ina, On, Sharon, Koi, Milan. And that's part of the whole process of our being. So that there's no problem, but for saying, this is red, this is blue, no problem. This is my friend, this is my enemy. That can get us into trouble. That can get us into trouble. If we start thinking, oh, they're really my friend, they will only do good for me, and my enemy will only do bad for me. Like, that's getting into ignorant territory of thinking that person is a friend from their own side, or that person is an enemy from their side. The other way, so that's one of the two meanings of Geshe, is the ability to discriminate. The other one, as Milan said in the chat, is the ability to conceive of something. So I'll just give you one example, and that is in the teachings, they say to conceive of your teacher, like Geshe Michael, or whoever your teacher is, to conceive of them as an enlightened being. So you think of them as being that kind of being. You have the feeling that they are that kind of being. So there are those beings who do have we should say conception here, that the meaning in this situation is conception. And why would I say that? Because everyone can discriminate. everyone does discriminate. So we can't talk about someone who can't discriminate. There's no such person. Conception can get into more, well, actually, with I'll take that back. Forget, rewind the tape, erase. Either one, discrimination or conception. So Geshe Michael literally means without the ability to discriminate. And as I just said, that's impossible. So it must be talking about something else, right? It must mean something else. And what this is referring to is like those beings in, is it the form or the formless realm? Probably either one. There are different levels. But let's just talk about the formless realm. But there's a meditation you can do where it's called shutting the mind down. But you can't shut your mind down. That's impossible. So what it means is that your mind is so subtle. It's as subtle as it can be. The gross mind, like thoughts, feelings, emotions, those sorts of things are not going on. It's just a very, very, very subtle awareness. And this can happen at what they call the peak of existence, the highest level in samsara, in the circle of suffering. It's called the peak. Sise, the peak. So Geshe Michael are those kinds of beings. So when we think about that, and if Geshe Michael is talking about beings who are in this very high level, concentration level, then Geshe Chen must be talking about people who are at a very gross level, right? So they're probably talking about like me, right? I'm always walking around, I like this, I don't like that. I'm always like labeling things, going after things. People in desire realm are always wanting either to get more of what they're attracted to, or they're wanting to get away from all the things that they're repulsed by. So that's like the gross level, those of us in the desire realm. And then those at the peak of existence are in that state of meditation where their minds are so subtle, as subtle as they can possibly be. Then we have this level, Geshe Me, Geshe Me Min. Now, if we think about this as two different phrases, Geshe Me and Geshe Me Min. Geshe Me means instead of not having discrimination, what this means is not the kind of person who has a gross discrimination. So this may is referring to this kind of person. They're not that kind of person. They're not a Geshe Chen kind of person. Okay? Then this one, Geshe Mei Min, that means they're not this kind of person. They're not a Geshe Meipa. So they're not a person with gross discrimination. And they're not a person with the finest, highest level of discrimination. They're a person who's somewhere in between. So this, Geshe Mei Min, that's talking about everyone in between gross level of discrimination and extremely subtle level of mind. So again, Lord Buddha is including everyone. So it's just a different way of saying everyone. Okay. Is that clear? Does anyone have any questions? Tin is making jokes, it looks like, in the chat in Vietnamese, which I can't understand. I don't know. The Vietnamese people I can see are smiling. Must be a good one. Okay. No questions about that? I don't know why it is. I attract the smartest students. So that just shows me you guys are just playing along. You're just saying you want these teachings. You're already enlightened, and you're just giving me the opportunity to finally join you in Buddha paradise. Oh, I see. Thank you, Tin. It's not really a joke, is it? Okay. Let's go on, Utpala. You have much left to cover. Okay, so in these ways, Buddha has talked about all living beings. So he said, okay, you have to help all these living beings. That's what bodhisattvas have to do. So what are you going to do with all living beings? What you're going to do is take them to Nyangen Depa. Say Nya, Nyen, that's a hard one, Ngen, Le, Depa. Nyangen, Lendepa. Because this has this little apostrophe, and because this ends with an open vowel, le, it turns into a very heavy prenasal. Lende. Lende. I should have put an N in there so you remembered. Nyangen Lendepa. So that's nirvana. That's the Tibetan phrase for nirvana. We're going to take these beings to nirvana. The Sanskrit nirvana means to like to blow out. And I kind of wonder if that's not why some of the lowest schools of Buddhist philosophy think that when you reach nirvana, you go out of existence, because you're blown out. But anyway, Nyang and Ledepa is very different meaning. Tibetans use different words. Ngangen means grief or sorrow. Grief. And we'll talk more about it, but Lendepa is to go beyond. So their word for nirvana is to go beyond grief. Nyangen Lendepa. Chöni Lama, remember, he's the author of the commentary that we're using to talk about Dhammapada Sutra. He says that grief includes 3 different ideas. The first idea, and now we're starting to get into what's going to be on your homework. So the first idea of the 3 ideas included in grief is mental afflictions, negative emotions. In Sanskrit, that's klesha, spelled like this using diacritics. And the root is klish, which means to bother someone, to irritate someone. So a mental affliction, and we more commonly use, Geshe Michael more commonly uses negative emotions. That's more street friendly or common word. Mental affliction sounds like maybe some sort of disease or something. No, we're just talking about anything that disturbs your mind. Anything that disturbs your peace of mind, that bothers your peace of mind. There are 6, well, there's a ton, literal ton of different kinds of negative emotions, but they talk about 6 primary negative emotions. And the first one is marekpa, which is misunderstanding or ignorance. Very good, thank you, Milan. And the next one is duchak. Sorry, that's a D suffix, so I got to cut it off. Duchak. And that is ignorant liking. Yay, thank you. Or sometimes called attachment. Kontrowa, which is ignorant, disliking, or anger. Shedang, yeah. Look at you with the synonyms, 10. Then there's Nagyel, which is pride. I am king. That's what that literally means. I am king. pride. Tetsom is doubt. Jessica, wow, you are hot. Huang, you too. And then there's the sixth one is Tawa Nyomong Chen. Tawa Nyomong Chen. Tawa is view. So a view that is like infected by negative emotions. So these six they're the primary mental afflictions or negative emotions. They're the things that motivate or inspire us to do what? We get bothered, and then what do? We harm ourselves or we harm others. We create karma. We do actions that bring harm. If we didn't have those six, or their friends as well, we wouldn't be causing harm. These mental afflictions are what they're the cause for creating karma. If you look at the what course did we have that in? It must have been course 5 in all the kinds of karma. When we talked about Manjushri's wheel of life, it doesn't have 12 steps; it has 5 or 6 steps. And he made this direct link between negative emotions and then taking action out of that. So we create negative karma. That's the second one. Karma. We create karma. If we didn't have negative emotions, we wouldn't create karma. And remember from the karma course, those of us in this realm, if you are who you appear to be, even when we're doing something nice for someone else, it's still not considered good karma, pure good karma. There's still some mix of negativity in there because of the way we view the world, but we'll get there. So if we didn't have negative emotions, we wouldn't do karma. And if we didn't do karma, then we wouldn't suffer in the future. And that's the third one, suffering. So grief, Chunni Lama says, is these three: negative emotions, karma, suffering. That process just seems so easy, right? I mean, when we know the way it works, when we know that it's mental afflictions that cause us to create harm, that cause us to suffer, then we can see, oh, if I don't want to suffer, I better not do any harm. And if I don't want to do harm, I better get rid of my negative emotions. So what Yundrit Malupar Pangpe Sosor Tango. We can remove our negative emotions, our mental afflictions, by perceiving emptiness directly. That's what gets us on the path to do that. And we're going to talk more about the relationship between emptiness and karma in a later class. Here's the word for suffering in case you don't know it. Dukngel. And then again, Depa. Sorry, I'm going to go back up here. Nyanglen Le Depa, the word for nirvana, right? Depa means to go beyond, right? Chunni Lama says, you could just use the word, where is it? I know I put it in here. I guess I didn't put it in here. Oh, there I did, right there, in front of my nose. You could just use the word karpa, which is moksha in Sanskrit. Karpa means freedom. Yes, thank you, Milan. So we become freed, from grief. Nirvana is freedom from grief in those three ways, right? Those three ways of thinking about grief as negative emotions, karma, and suffering. So beautiful. I love Chunni Lama. I think he's just brilliant. Okay. Moving on to bodhicitta. I'm not going to go through the Tibetan here, but just know that it is in this document. So you can, in fact, that would be a good exercise for those of you who are learning Tibetan, is to go through and think of these words with their meanings so that it just becomes like reading your own language. That when you read it, it's just like, oh, I get the meaning. So what this is saying is bodhicitta is defined as the wish to achieve total enlightenment for the sake of other beings. I gotta go through, I'm sorry. I can't help myself. Semkhepa, that means bodhicitta. So Semkhepa ni, bodhicitta is Shendunchir. That means for the benefit of others. To benefit others. Yang dakbe dzogbe jangchu. That means total and complete enlightenment. And du is the wish. Bodhicitta is the wish to become totally and completely enlightened in order to benefit others. This phrase is used in the Diamond Cutter Sutra before the word for nirvana, Yongsu. So Yongsu Nyingen Lendepa. Yongsu means total. Total freedom from grief. Okay, so now there are many different ways to talk about bodhicitta, different types of bodhicitta. Here is one way to talk about, to divide bodhicitta. You know, these Tibetan Buddhists, not just Tibetan Buddhists, I think Buddhists in other traditions as well, like to divide things. So there, when we talk about two kinds, when the Buddha here, he says next to Subhuti, hey, Subhuti, you know, I just said that you need to take absolutely everyone to total and complete freedom from grief, right? Yes, Buddha, you said it. That's what Bodhisattvas should do. Well, if you could take all those beings in every realm, in every condition, whether they have a body or mind, or whether they're born from an egg or from a womb, anyway, any kind of being, if you could take them to nirvana, nobody would reach nirvana. What? Wait a minute. I thought I'm trying to free all living beings from suffering. And you're saying now nobody reaches nirvana? We have to talk about this way of talking about the two kinds of bodhicitta. Yes, I'm about to explain it. Have some patience with me. Don't worry, I won't let class end without talking about this. So there are two kinds of bodhicitta in this division. Say kunzo. Semke means bodhicitta, right? We had that earlier. Kunzo and dundam senke. Dundam. So the difference is kunzo, dundam. Kunzo, as Milan reminds us, means deceptive, false. Deceptive in the sense of a trickster. Do you know trickster? Someone who likes to play tricks on people. Someone who likes to fool people. Someone who likes to mislead people. So, isn't this curious? A kind of bodhicitta, the wish to become enlightened in order to benefit all living beings, that is like being a trickster, that has something tricky about it, that is deceptive. And then dundam, as Milan said, is ultimate. So this, if you have studied, I think maybe this was in course 2. But when we divide all of reality, one of the ways we can divide all of reality is into kunzop and dundam, into deceptive reality and ultimate reality. They're known as the two truths, and they're not really true. But anyway, deceptive or false, and ultimate. So if we think about deceptive in terms of bodhicitta, who are all those beings that we want to free from the cycle of suffering? Well, what kind of reality do all those beings live in that we're seeing? Yeah, they live in deceptive reality. What does deceptive mean? It means we're being deceived by something that is appearing to be or exist in a way that they do not exist. Where's my pen? I cleaned my desk and now I don't have a pen. Okay. Next best thing, phone. This is deceptive reality because it appears to exist from its own side. It appears to have come from an Apple phone manufacturing plant somewhere in China or something. It's coming to me. It appears to be coming to me. It doesn't appear to be coming from me. That's the way. Oh, never mind. The important thing is that it is deceptive. The appearance of this phone to my mind is deceptive in that it says there's a phone that it is a phone from its own side, that this thing that I'm holding has some nature of being a phone. It's not a paperweight. It's not a paper airplane. It's definitely not a pen, right? It has that appearance of being what it is from its own side. So those beings, all those countless numbers of beings in all the realms of existence that we want to save, that we want to become enlightened in order to benefit, they're all deceptive. They all appear to be coming from their own side. They all appear to be suffering, living beings from their own side. They're not. Then ultimate bodhicitta. This again, Lord Buddha is playing tricks on us. Ultimate bodhicitta has nothing to do with bodhicitta. Well, not nothing to do with it, but nothing directly to do with it. Ultimate bodhicitta means the direct perception of emptiness. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with compassion or love or the wish to become fully enlightened. So while you are in the direct perception of emptiness, could you see a living being? No. Good. We just said that living beings, all those living beings are deceptive reality. When you are in the direct perception of emptiness, you are having an experience of ultimate reality. Ultimate reality, as we're going to get into as the course continues, is the absence of having a self-nature. It is a lack of having a self-nature. Living beings are not lacks. They have a lack of a self-nature. They have emptiness, but their appearance to us is deceptive. They appear to be coming from their own side. They appear to us to be coming from their own side. Oh, I'm so nervous. I've got way too much more to talk about. It's so exciting, this stuff. Isn't this exciting? Oh, I just love this stuff. Okay. Let's see what I can do in 3.5 minutes. When we see emptiness directly, what we need to do is what we're doing is we're seeing the absence of that deception that we said was appearing to us, right? That deceptive appearance, what that deception was. That deception is what doesn't exist. People coming from their own side. A phone being a phone from its own side. That deception, self-existence, let's call it, is what we deny when we see its absence. We are saying self-existence doesn't exist. And we see that absence directly, not with our eyes. We see that absence directly with our minds. We are canceling out self-existent phone. Well, self-existent me, that's the one that's really going to get us out of suffering. So that kind of phone that we're canceling, that's called a gotcha. A gotcha. The thing we deny. It's used a lot in logic texts. This is why logic's so important for seeing emptiness directly. How can we say something doesn't exist if we can't define it? We have to be able to define it, describe it. What is the mistake that we're making? We can't just go around and saying, self-existence doesn't exist. Well, what is self-existence? Like, how does that appear to me? What goes on? What is it that I think is going on that is so mistaken? I have to be able to describe it very clearly. I need to know that gotcha backwards and forwards. It doesn't exist, no, but I think it does, right? That's why I'm in trouble the way I am. So I need to understand that mistake as clearly and as thoroughly as possible so I can deny its existence. Otherwise, I cannot, simply cannot. Impossible. You know, if you don't know, if you don't know uh, what a purple elephant is, you cannot say that there's not one in your room right now. How could you look around and see that it's not there? You can't. You have to know what purple is and what an elephant is. And then you look around and you see, no, I see no purple, I see no elephant. But a baby, they don't know there's no purple elephant in the room. Oh, I went over. Darn it. Okay, there's one question you won't be able to answer. And I will talk about it first thing on Tuesday. Wednesday. Sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. But so, again, apologies for going over. That seems to be my middle name, always goes over. Please, after we hang up our Zoom call, please remember to dedicate the amazingly powerful, good karma, the good seeds you've created by being in this class today. And dedicate them toward as high a goal as you can, like maybe reaching total and complete enlightenment. Thank you, live translators. I love you. I'm in such admiration of you. Thank you, ACI. Thank you, Zoom and internet, and especially Geshe Michael. And have a wonderful weekend. And I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, dear Venerable Utpala.
Thank you very much. Good night.
老师晚安。
谢谢
Teacher, thank you so much,
老
teacher.
师晚安，
Please
谢谢翻译老
take
师。
the
Cảm ơn cô. Chào
谢谢
cô.
翻译老师，谢
Thank
谢
you,
我们
teacher.
的的确乌巴拉，Thank you，的确乌巴拉。
谢谢翻译老师，晚安。
老师。
感恩狗本啦。